Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the As Seen on TV podcast for The Flash, Season 1, Episode 2, Bestest Man Alive. I am your host, Clio, and with me I have Dom.
Hello!
I just like the second episode.
Second episode, I think, was a lot better than the first episode, in my opinion.
And you liked the first episode a lot, right?
I did. I really enjoyed the first episode. Like I said, it was one of the very few pilots, especially considering that they named the episode Pilot, which that always irks me. But I think it was a very well fleshed out pilot. I'm a very critical person. I want to state that first and foremost. And I had some gripes with this episode, but I was willing to overlook them because it's a new series. My gripes are the needing to bring up things that have already happened, needing to repeat themselves. And I understand not everybody can watch the show every week, and they're kind of appeasing to people that may have just jumped in on this episode, because there's no need for the way that they re-mentioned the particle accelerator exploding, and like they went into detail on these events, and they kind of worked them in where it felt extremely forced, and I'm just not a big fan of that. I watched the show, I understood what happened, and I feel like they're trying to dumb it down for the audience. I like to think people that watch these kind of shows, maybe it's just a bigger expectation of me, but you have a smarter audience, especially the comic book fans. So,
So in that same vein, what did you think about the whole breaking the fourth wall voiceover in the beginning?
I actually really liked that, as cheesy as it was, because it fit with the theme of the first episode. And I mean, it's going to get old if they continue this on throughout the rest of the season and into the next. They might be able to get away with it this entire first season, but carrying it on into the second season, definitely not. But I really liked it. I thought it was cheesy enough and it worked.
I don't know, I didn't really, because in the first episode, it makes sense because he's obviously telling the story to Ollie.
Right.
That's where the whole voiceover is coming from. He's not talking to anybody but us.
Yeah.
In this episode, so I don't know, it irked me a little.
I liked it. I liked it. As cheesy as it was, I thought it was effective. And it brought some humor to the story as well, because
it's true.
Not a lot of room for humor right now at this stage of the story. But
yeah, Flash is like Spider-Man in the way where he's always got the funny,
right,
the funny stuff.
They made it work, I thought, in my opinion. But
so we see Cisco helping Barry in the beginning to rescue people from burning building. Was Cisco working behind the other scientists' backs? Because, you know, Caitlin comes in and is like, what are you doing?
It certainly seemed that way. Like, Caitlin obviously had no clue. It seemed almost as she would have, or not that she would have, but she disproved of it. And Barry instantly knew that. I mean, you saw the look on his face as soon as he heard her voice over the intercom. And he's just like, oh, hi. Well then. As far as what's the scientist in the wheelchair's name? It's a little too early for me to be remembering character names at this stage.
Harrison Wells.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with that one, because we see
him in general. You mean
with whether or not he had knowledge of this?
Yeah.
Because we later see in the episode that he is all for Barry doing this.
Yeah.
But I feel like he didn't know at the beginning of this episode either. But I feel like he wouldn't have disproved of it either.
Well, it's hard to say, because let's skip to the end. He kills Stag in order to, what he says, protect Barry. And from what we saw from the pilot, he had a newspaper from the future. So he's safe to assume he's a time traveler. He's come back to make sure Barry's safe. So I don't think that anything that's happening right now he doesn't know about.
So you think he's currently a time traveler? That's interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I think he's currently a time traveler because the way he talks makes it seem like he's trying to protect Barry's future. He's trying to protect the future Flash.
Right, so the man that he killed, that Multiplex could not finish the job on.
Yeah.
That brings another question. Is Wheelchair Man, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. It's not going to stick
Harrison.
right now. What was it?
Harrison.
Harrison, I feel like maybe he's recruiting these people.
Which people?
Multiplex.
He's recruiting the metahumans?
Yeah, I think he's working with them.
With them.
Multiplex, what was Multiplex's one task this episode? It was to eliminate the guy that, what's his face, just ended up killing at the end of the episode.
Yeah. But Multiplex had a grudge with him to begin with.
Right, so who's to say that he's not playing with their, what's the word? Playing with their emotions, so to speak?
Mm.
He could be exploiting them.
Yeah, maybe. It's interesting. I don't know. Because I can't nail down who he is yet.
Right.
I can't. But I mean, I said last episode that Eddie, who is the cop and Iris's boyfriend,
right,
his character in the comics is the Reverse Flash who murders Barry's mother. But I think that they're gonna change that bit of lore and they're gonna make Harrison the Reverse Flash. And maybe he kills Barry's mother to put him on the path to becoming.
That would be
Flash.
Really interesting. I'd actually, I actually hate when they change comic book lore. Be it the fact that if I'm invested in it in any, like, what was it, Spider-Man, right? Mm-hmm. Spider-Man, I despised the first movie for the Tobey Maguire trilogy, mm-hmm. when there was no Gwen Stacy and the cable cars, and because the Green Goblin at that point had the children on the cable cars, and he had Gwen Stacy, and he'd let them go, and Spider-Man went to save the kids, and he shot the web for Gwen and snapped her neck in the process, trying to save her. And that was like such an impactful moment in the comics that like it changed everything. And then they just wrote that out of the movie like it wasn't important. And I feel like it changed the whole vibe of it. So I particularly don't like when they change comics for media purposes. But that twist actually seems like it's better.
Yeah, because my dad pointed out that Eddie's the Reverse Flash, and I was like, yeah, but what got me first was that the age didn't match up. Like, Eddie looks too young to have been there when Barry was a child to murder his mother.
Unless he
Harrison
time traveled.
Is old enough.
Unless he time traveled,
Not to mention that I assume he's a time traveler.
Right, but if Eddie time travels...
Yes, that's true.
Then he would be the same age he is now.
It is possible. I'm not ruling out that he still might end up being...
Right. I like your theory better, to be honest. Like I said, I don't really like when they mess around with stuff like that. But that really, it honestly seems like a better backstory.
Yeah. Because aside from that theory, I wouldn't be able to nail down who Harrison really could be.
And I know comics themselves rewrite their own backstories thousands of times. Oh. Like, look at the Joker in Batman. How many different comic book variations do we have of the Joker's origin story?
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, and I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this in Arrow or if I mentioned this to you, but there's a whole arc in the comics called the Crisis on Infinite Earths where they try to say, hey, we have all of these different versions of characters and they're all different dimensions. Let's merge them back into one. And then like the next bunch of stories, it just totally undid itself.
Yeah. Oh, that's super. I'm excited now. I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't excited before, but I'm more intrigued now.
Mm-hmm. So Barry gets headaches and he gets dizzy and he faints. And then he lies about it. It's like, that's smart, Barry. Good job. You're a genius. But did you like? Could you tell it was because he wasn't eating enough?
I mean, I didn't. That wasn't the first thing that popped into my mind, but
Yeah.
who tells their doctor the complete absolute truth?
I guess that's true.
You know,
Again,
there's always a part of you, like small part of you, that doesn't want to reveal the whole truth because you don't want necessarily your fears to come alive and the worst case scenario, you know, be the case. So you try to omit stuff like that when you go to the doctors.
Yeah, I think especially for Barry, he sees himself now as a superhero and wants to just be super.
Right.
Oh no, there's no problem. I'm super.
Yeah, the food thing though, it didn't really cross my mind, but now that they brought it up, it's like, how did I miss that? You know, it's like you're running that fast, you're burning so many calories. You know, think of what do they have the devices, you know, you get for your cell phones where you hook it up and you run on the treadmill and it'll tell you how many calories you burned and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that and how many calories in the foods and stuff you eat, like all this health craze that everybody's dealing with. How many calories do you think it burns running at that speed? He could run a mile in 3 seconds, he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny. It reminded me of Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon, because him and the Flash and Green Lantern were just like at the park, and Flash went and bought like 50 hot dogs, and it was just like this.
Yeah.
Stack of 50 hot dogs.
Yeah, but the treadmill scene I think was great.
Yeah, he just passes out. She's like, I know what's wrong.
I love that treadmill scene. Like, just the fact that they were able to get a treadmill to run at that speed to begin with was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that was funny. I also failed to realize the nerd potential of this superpower. Barry is now his own centrifuge.
Yeah, he is.
It was broken. He just goes like this. Voila.
That's pretty cool. The one thing I don't understand though is I brought up the Spider-Man reference before, and the reason why Spider-Man accidentally killed Gwen was when she was falling and he caught her in the web. The sudden stop is what broke her neck and she died.
Yes.
How are these people that he's saving not dying when he's carrying them at these ridiculous speeds and then suddenly stopping?
Well, because he's grabbing them. They're not gonna move or move their weight for him, so he's got to physically pick them up and then move them and then put them down. He's just doing it at a very fast pace. But yeah, you're right. Maybe there's like a sweet spot where he won't hurt them, because he opened the door to the car in the pilot and broke the window.
Right.
Because of the speed at which he opened the door.
Which I forgot to mention on the last episode. That was my favorite scene.
Yeah.
In the pilot was him just appearing in the car. It's like he's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, like you would think that would have been something that they potentially dealt with. Because it just seemed like he knew how to do it immediately. Like, do you think you'd know? Like, if that was the case, specific way to hold the person or cradle their neck to prevent it from snapping when it goes from a standstill speed to 300 miles an hour to standstill speed again?
Yeah, well, maybe that would be more of an issue if he was pulling them, but if he grabbed them and ran forward, like with him as like a brace, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
Almost.
I could see that, but at the same time, my first reaction when I pick somebody up and I'm gonna run with them is to throw them over my shoulder, you know, and run. So I feel like in that particular scenario, he would kill someone. Yeah,
maybe if he just violently slung them over his shoulder. But yeah, that's interesting. It's something I didn't think of. I wonder if it's something they've ever addressed in the in the comics before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I always, as much as I know that these are science fiction, they're they're not exactly reality. I still like to believe that they can be based in reality somewhere, and I tend to look at things like that, and then it starts bothering me, and then I end up not enjoying it as much as I should be. So I need to just stop thinking about things like this
Yeah.
and move on.
So we know we got a little more of an explanation about Ronnie, who was Caitlin's fiance, who got killed in the whole reactor thing.
The particle reactor explosion.
What?
Yeah, the particle reactor.
Particle accelerator.
Yeah.
Particle accelerator. And I'm pretty sure that Ronnie is slotted with an actor, like someone's, because I don't think we've seen him before.
Right.
Arrow or anything like that. But he's got someone to play him. So do you think
potential that we may only see it in a flashback, but I'm willing to bet that he's not dead.
Yeah. I kind of get that feeling too.
Everybody so far that has supposedly been dead is not dead.
Yeah.
So I just have a feeling that a lot of these people vanished when they realized they had some of these superpowers and didn't quite know how to handle themselves. I mean, look at Barry. Like, to the average person, it looked like he disappeared for 6 months unless they were told he was in a coma at S.T.A.R Labs.
Yeah. Well, no, because they brought him to a regular hospital at first, and the hospital kept thinking he was falling into cardiac arrest. So they knew where he was. And then S.T.A.R Labs came and took him with the permission of Joe. What was I going to say? I was going to say... I don't remember. Whatever.
The former fiancé guy?
Yeah. Yeah, it could also be that you were saying that maybe Harrison is using the metahumans for whatever he wants to change in this timeline. Whatever. So maybe the missing ones are not actually missing.
I refuse to believe that the S.T.A.R Labs that he has is the only laboratory that he's working from. He's got to have more stationed, even if they're much smaller bases. But he's got to have some other places around the city.
It's very possible that his secret lab is just underneath S.T.A.R Labs, because we saw his little chamber with the holographic newspaper from 10 years in the future.
That's true too.
That room obviously is a secret. I don't think anybody else knows about it, and there's probably more rooms like that in S.T.A.R Labs.
And you know, the fact that you mentioned that he can time travel and stuff, it never even crossed my mind how he got that newspaper into present day. I don't know why. I just accepted the fact that he had it and never questioned how he got it. So, good point.
It could also be that he is not a time traveler and just somehow has knowledge of 10 years in the future.
Or technology to peek into the future or something, yeah.
Yeah. In the DCU, there are many characters that time travel or have knowledge of the future. So, especially in the Flash's universe, the Flash's storylines.
Yeah, it seems like you can't rule anything out in this story because of the particle accelerator and having to deal with such specific things. Like, they explained Multiplex's ability because he was possibly testing on himself, which is why that created. We know that Barry had a run-in with this Reverse Flash incident, which seemingly is what triggered that effect. You mentioned the gorilla.
Gorilla Grodd.
Grodd.
They had the cage broken open.
Yeah, you mentioned that. So I have a feeling he's in a laboratory where they do testing and weird experiment kind of things. So if he was affected, he's in the building. He's going to be near the radius of the blast. He's going to have a much stronger feed to it than some of the people that may have been on the outskirts of the blast. So it probably would have hit him stronger and amplified his abilities. And
yes.
We had the weather guy that was up in the helicopter. He's up there in the atmosphere already, and he's closer to this kind of the storm. He's like almost part of the lightning storm. So that explains how a lot of these guys have gotten their powers. So it's really kind of dependent on what they were doing at the time of the storm.
Yeah, exactly. So Stag Industries, Joe sees another metahuman. He sees the multiplex. Is that his name, multiplex?
Multiplex, yes. They called him Colonel Clone or something dumb at first. Captain Clone, yeah.
I feel like that's somebody's name, or they could have just made it up to make fun, but
yeah,
I feel like that might have been an alternate name. Something from the comics. But yeah, so he sees another metahuman, and he finds Barry's murder board. Did you expect that both times he would come over to Barry's side and say, you know what, Barry, you're right?
The murder board was kind of a shock to me. I figured that was going to be something that played out to Barry keeping a secret longer than it did. I was not expecting that in the second episode, for sure.
I was more surprised at Joe's reaction. He goes to him and he's like, you know what? We're going to find your mother's real murderer. It's cool.
Yeah,
you're obsessed.
That was also, though, this goes back to Dr. Wells coming up to him and basically saying that he's ready to give this up. Like, he's ready to run away, run from his problems. And we had all these flashbacks you're seeing of Joe dealing with Barry as a child and different stages through his childhood and things like that. And how he didn't react well to not being able to see his father, how he accused Joe of not being his real dad. And like that
was like, ooh.
Yeah. But at the same time, that's something that I guarantee you almost every adopted parent has heard in their life. Yeah. One point or another, they've heard it.
And I mean, I would imagine sometimes biological parents hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Not my real dad.
But, like, Joe realizes, you know, Barry can take care of himself, and he's got these extraordinary abilities. And, yeah, he's the only one that can stop these. Like, Joe tried himself to deal with Multiplex, and that didn't go over well for him or the police force. So, at that point, who's going to take him out?
Yeah.
It's not going to be it's not going to be him.
It's something I wrote later on in the notes. It's like he goes to fight Multiplex and he's alone. Like they're all huddled in the lab over the comms and he's by himself. It's like you actually let him go by himself? It's like nobody's there as backup. I guess I'm just used to Arrow where everyone's just like, yeah, you know, we're all there backup. Why is nobody going with him?
Yeah.
Why is he alone?
Well, see, I can't speak for Arrow because I have not watched Arrow other than the first 3 episodes. But my impression of Arrow was it was more reality-based, ground in what could potentially be a real world where I know you said there's kind of some supervillain kind of things running around right now, but The Flash, it's dealt with these metahumans right off the bat. It just went in full force to ridiculousness. And the police are not equipped to handle something like this. It seemed like over the course of Arrow, it's something that they gradually built up to and maybe could have adapted to. Where there was no time to adapt here in The Flash. It just, boom, everything changed in an instant. And it's all when Barry woke up. And that further makes things a lot more coincidental that these metahumans are now showing themselves, revealing themselves to the public as soon as Barry wakes up, which just points more fingers at Dr. Wells.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's why Joe was so accepting of it and accepting of the father and, you know, finding out who the real dad was. He realized he made his mistake. You know, when he thought Joe was, I mean, when Joe thought Barry was lying last episode about the weatherman being alive, and then realized, oh no, he was right, and then now he's realizing and seeing his Barry's powers being the Flash. That, oh, maybe he was right about his parents. So yeah. He's admitting to himself that he was wrong this whole time, and in doing so, he's got to make it up to Barry. So he's got to put trust in Barry. He's let Barry go, do his thing, and he's also willing to lend a hand. Helping him find his real dad and enjoying some jalapeno olive and something pizza.
Well, that was a weird pizza.
That was a very weird pizza. The way he initially brought the 3 pizzas in, I thought one was olive, one was jalapeno, one was something.
No,
and then he
it's all
opened it up, and it's all... Was it pepperoni? Was that the third one? Pepperoni, olive, and jalapeno? I thought they were 3 separate pizzas, and I was like...
Yeah.
As soon as he opened it, I was like, no thanks.
So the next note I have, I just wrote in like all caps, "Sack up, Barry."
Yeah. Fucking tell her.
Just tell her. Yeah. It's like, I know she's with somebody, but, you know, you're in a coma.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just...
It's a complicated issue. It's not something as easy as spilling the beans, because if you think you have a chance, I think I brought this up last episode, if you have a chance, you don't want to ruin it when she's in another relationship, because that's instantly the cop-out answer is, oh, I would love to, but I'm in this, and then both parties feel extremely awkward in that situation, and then when something happens and they break up, that person instantly is going to flock back in, and they're going to push away because they know at that point that's what they're coming in for. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know, it's a weird situation. I as much as it seems like from an outsider's perspective, on the like that's the right thing to do. Tell her how you feel. I think it would complicate things between them even more. I don't think it would end good.
I think he should have told her when he was going to tell her at, in the pilot, but that's not
that I agree with.
But what
100%.
we have here is that yes, he's at this impasse, he can't tell her, but he's going to sit on these feelings, and they're going to turn into resentment. He's going to hate Eddie.
He already
when it's
does.
not Eddie's fault.
He already made that comment. What was that comment? Go ahead, kiss already.
Yeah.
And then you saw that weird, like, backward look that he was giving him.
Yeah. Yeah, because
he's
he's
like,
just
I'm so happy that you're cool with this, Barry.
Yeah. It's just gonna build up, and it's gonna be like, when it bursts, it's just gonna be like, oh, great, okay, yeah, we know. We've known this the whole time.
There's no good way to handle it. Either way, it's gonna build up for somebody. It's gonna boil over.
So the Dr. Harrison Wells, who I almost forgot his name, was talking to Joe, and he was saying, "What am I part of? What are we? What is S.T.A.R Lab now? Some secret crime fighting unit?" But wasn't Barry going off on his own with Cisco and not like telling them? So why? It just made me think that he's even more full of shit and lying.
Well, this is coming from Joe, and Joe doesn't understand exactly how S.T.A.R Labs is working at this point.
Yeah.
He just sees Barry spending all his time here at S.T.A.R Labs, and now there's these things of this red blur. Red flash. What do they call it? Red blur?
Yeah, the red blur.
Yeah.
That's the papers call him.
Yeah, there's just these sightings
of... Flash is calling him Flash.
Yeah. There's just sightings of these red blur and mysterious saving of people or whatever, and Joe's not an idiot. He put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
2 + 2 = fish. And...
You got it.
Yeah. And... at that point, he knows. He goes, S.T.A.R Labs. That's what started all this. So he goes there. He sees the sweatshirt. He heads over there. And he goes in, he accuses them, and rightfully so. I mean, I would too in that position, even if they didn't know anything about it. That would be the first people I would accuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I thought was weird was that when, I think it was Caitlin, was telling Flash to look for the one of the clones that was showing signs of stress.
Right.
It's like, okay, it'll be the one who's like gritting his teeth or whatever. And then when 100 clones are rushing him, there's the one guy with 1 bead of sweat trickling down his face. It's like, is that all that it takes to control 100 clones?
Yeah, 1 bead of sweat.
Mind?
That's it.
1 bead of sweat. That's it.
No big deal. Yeah, it's those little things that irk me more than like some of the big major plot holes.
Yeah.
It's little inconsistencies like that. Like, you see Barry running around and passing out, getting a headache, and dealing with all this stuff. This guy breaks a sweat, and that's it. So.
Yeah. Trickle of sweat.
Just one bead.
One single manly sweat.
Yeah, it was interesting. The theory, the concept of the weakness was interesting. I think it could have been played a little bit better. Initially, when they all started running at him, there was one that tripped. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, no, I didn't.
And
was that the one that ended up being...
No.
No?
I thought it was going to be. And he weaved in and out of all of them, because the guy that tripped was like right in the front of the pack.
Oh, okay.
And I was convinced that was him, and then he weaves through and ends up being the guy at the very end of the line, which that's more of an obvious thing than anything, is you find the one that they're running out of.
Yeah, well, that's where he's got to make him from himself. So
yeah,
there's no getting around that. That
should have been more of the clue than it was the physical strain.
Mm-hmm.
You just look for the I forget the term that they used, but you know, the origin. Look for the origin point.
Oh, the prime.
The prime.
Prime.
The prime directive, whatever, yeah. Just that's all they needed. Like, have Barry run up to the ceiling and, like, I'm sure he could run himself in a circle around the wall up the ceiling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just run up the ceiling, hang from a chandelier or something, and watch and see which one is spitting the clones out. Yeah, there you go. Scout it out.
Yeah. Speaking of Caitlin, we mentioned last episode that her, in the comics, her alter ego is Killer Frost, and Killer Frost works for Hive, which is baddies. It's a group of baddies, and but she was smiling in this episode, so she seems to be warming up to Team Flash. Do we think that they're gonna take the Killer Frost Hive route? Are we gonna see her turn into a villain?
Absolutely, 100%. Because you have your superhero team, your group that works so well together.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to draw conflict is to break the team up.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like your conviction.
And yeah, and who better to do that than a returning ex-dead fiance?
Yes. Good point. I already mentioned the professor's trying to preserve the Flash's future. And about him being Reverse Flash. So there's only one more note I got. And I mean, we mentioned that he in the papers he's called the Red Blur. But now Iris is gonna start chasing him, and that's her new journalism project.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be good, especially if it's a secret he's trying to keep from her.
Right, and it was interesting also, because I think that was part of the reason why he decided to go back to S.T.A.R. Labs at the time, which he was called, because she also kind of revealed that at that moment. Yeah. Then he received the phone call to go back to the lab, and, you know, and part of it, he wants to be in her life in some capacity, so he's probably going to create some more of these situations and one-on-one meetings so he can get closer to her and try to win her over as the Flash and then reveal himself.
That's not going to go very well.
No.
I don't think that's going to work very well.
No, but I see that being his shining moment of hope and probably why he's continuing down that path. But at the same time, I feel like that's going to put her in a lot of danger.
And Joe's going to get mad at him.
Mm-hmm. Because he's got to keep this a secret from her. He made a promise to Joe. He said that he never breaks his promises. Mm-hmm. So there's already that conundrum right there. And then her being the journalist and covering these stories, especially if she's getting exclusives, that's going to put a big target on her back of, oh, we need to get to the Flash? Well, here's this reporter that covers him all the time, gets these exclusives, must have some inner workings and connections with the Flash. So,
yeah, especially since she's not a real journalist, it's just a class she's taking.
Right, so it's more of, let's target her to get to the Flash. I see that being a big problem really quickly.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, do you have anything else to say about this episode? I really liked it.
There was that touching moment at the end, You know, we were talking about when the pizza and whatever, but it's when Barry was like, you know what? You brought me to prom, you dropped me off at college, you fed me, you clothed me, you bathed me, whatever. I don't remember the exact speech, but he's like, that sure sounds like a dad to me.
Yeah.
You know, that was the turning point for Joe. I think that's the closest he ever felt to being a true father to Barry, and that's really going to strengthen their bond coming up into the future.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, next week is episode 3, The Things You Can't Outrun. The Flash battles the Mist. Catelyn tells Barry about Ronnie. The team at S.T.A.R Labs works to capture Kyle Nimbus, who I assume is the Mist. Ooh. His name is Nimbus.
Nimbus Clouds.
Yep. A dangerous new metahuman with toxic gas powers. Revisit painful night of the particle accelerator explosion. And, oh yeah, they're just talking about Ronnie. And Joe decides to finally visit Henry in jail after all these years, but things take a dangerous turn when Kyle shows up, looking to punish Joe for arresting him years ago.
Who is Kyle again?
Kyle. Super good question. I... No. Kyle. Oh, wait, Kyle. Nimbus. Okay, it's the Mist shows up.
Okay.
Because I guess Joe imprisoned him. Like, locked him up.
Okay.
Iris and Eddie continue to hide their relationship from Joe. Yay, more secrets. And it's gonna
Gotta
work
have secrets.
so well. So, yeah. That's next week's episode. Sounds interesting.
I'm looking right now, see what I can find out about the Mist. The Mist name was Kyle, last name unknown. Fought in World War I as captain in the Canadian Army, winning the Victoria Cross. So, curious if they're going to go that route with the Mist and make him a time traveler himself of some sort.
It doesn't sound like it because we get his last name.
Right. So
we're gonna see. They do seem to be like shuffling around a couple of the backstories of these villains. So yeah.
Yeah, there was Earth 2 version, but that was in the 1960s. So
yeah, I think that's part of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's going to be a completely new take on
Mist.
On Mist.
Yep. I'm excited to see more baddies, so.
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that everybody so far is sticking to the comics. I don't know the Flash comics. I'm not very well versed in DC Comics, but I believe they have enough villains to last for quite some time. But I'd be curious to see if the show is going to introduce their own created villains, people not from the comics. I always like when they do their own take on things like that and see what they could come up with. See what's comics pretty much nailed everything. Like you think of it, you think of any superpower out there, and somebody's got it. Be it in Marvel or DC, and usually both. But occasionally there's some people that can slip through the cracks, and they can surprise us with some really powerful villains that are origined from nowhere. And sometimes you find out the ones without superpowers can sometimes be the worst villain of them all. So
I feel like, especially with the particle accelerator, we're going to get a lot of metahumans this season.
Yeah.
Maybe more towards the future we'll get villains with them.
Definitely, and I'd like actually to see a few more Arrow crossovers.
I actually read up on it. Episode 8 is when they're going to start doing crossover episodes.
Interesting.
In both the Flash and in Arrow.
So I'm going to have you fill me in the meantime until next year when I have the time to catch up on Arrow.
Yes.
And
or if you don't mind spoilers, you can just watch the podcast.
This is true too. But I feel like watching this show is going to propel me more motivation to catch up on Arrow than anything. So,
but yeah, I'm glad that they're giving Flash 8 episodes to get their legs before shoving Arrow back in.
Well, technically 7, because Arrow was shoehorned in the first one. But yeah,
well,
it was a needed tie-in. Yeah,
yeah, that was more of an anchor to Barry's actual origin, which was in Arrow. So that was more of like a anchor instead of a crossover. But yeah, you're right. Well, that's all we got. Dom, where can the people find you?
You can find me down below at Phenomedom, PHENOMEDOM.
And you can find me at Cleomoto on all of the socials and things. And if you go follow me on Pinterest, I am doing a giveaway once I hit 100 followers. So you can win something, maybe.
Win it. Win all the goodies.
Win all the goodies. And you can find us and all of us here at ASOTV Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, Google+, and right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care. This podcast went by in a flash. Feel like we just started.
Do 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 do.